Hey guys, welcome to Creators to Creators today. Today we have a special guest.
Hi, my name's Leroy Stone. I don't know if you can hear me.
But welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much. I'm so honored that you agreed to do this.
Of course.
Because it's like I'm just a regular guy, right? and here I am, having a conversation with you, which I appreciate. So it's awesome.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So, the show's about, content creators and people just being creative, and you basically fit that. That's what you do. You're a content creator. You have a YouTube channel. You're also, vlog about your, well, I won't talk about it. You tell me about it.
Mhm.
So,
Okay,
but
sure.
let's start from the beginning. You're born in, is it Michigan?
Yeah.
And so tell me, what was that like growing up
Yeah,
there?
it was really interesting. So I grew up in the Metro Detroit area, a city called Highland Park, which is like a city inside of Detroit, kind of like we were surrounded by it. And so a lot of my growing up years was like during the 70s and things like that. So uh, got to see a lot of changes generational wise over the years. Um, but yeah, it has been an interesting experience. Um, Kind of grew up in a family that was a little bit dysfunctional,
Mm,
and just the things that people deal with. It is what it is. I don't put a whole lot of worry or concern about that. Um, but I've always had a very strong interest in film. Uh, so often people who go to movies a lot, like I did, you find characters in film that um, offer like confidence and creativity and those kind of things. And I was always drawn to those kind of stories. So, yeah, you know,
that's great.
uh,
Was it like
yeah.
a way
So
to escape from, certain things around the house? Like when you
oh
got
yeah,
away, when you watch like a movie, it kind of takes you out of that reality for a little bit.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Because the kind of environment I grew up in was the sort of thing where I was I was a very shy person, a very withdrawn person, um, low self esteem, all that kind of
Aw.
goofiness. And so I would gravitate towards characters in film who were very strong, um, were very independent.
Hmm.
Um, James Bond movies, Clint Eastwood movies, The Man with No Name, all the
For
stuff. So,
sure.
and they were always character building stories.
Hmm.
And even when the uh, more African American based films started coming across,
Yeah.
like Shaft and all this kind of thing.
Shaft.
Still, there was a very strong presence in each one of those characters, and I
Right.
was always drawn to that. It was confidence, being able to kind of handle your life the best way you can, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, Huge Star Trek fan, all that kind of stuff. So
Nice.
yeah, and that led into my interest in science fiction. I've always been a huge science fiction fan.
Nice.
So those because of the stories are always so very imaginative, and
Yeah.
it was a way of looking at society and how people interact with one another
Hmm.
on a very different level. So I've always been fascinated by that. So
That's amazing. That's really
yeah,
cool. I
yeah.
love that. And I love that that's what you kind of, and I know that you have a YouTube channel. Um so you started that, the YouTube channel, is it Leroy's Tea channel? I
Right,
love that
right.
title, by the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're more of
Originally,
a tea, so you're more of a tea drinker, I see, not a
I'm a tea
coffee.
drinker. The idea behind that was so often the people much younger than I
Uh-huh.
will do these lines on their social media channels saying, "Well, I'm gonna spill the tea about something here." So I figured, well, Leroy's tea, that was the perfect name for it. So I come up with
Nice.
that. And yeah, it's a play on words and everything like that.
That's awesome.
Um, but yeah, I try to focus my channel around creativity, around spirituality, um, try to offer ideas and advice that might help others. It's a work in progress, meaning I don't have a specific focus at this point in time.
Right.
Um, but I started it, oh my goodness, close to 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I was drawn to it actually, curiously enough, from watching um, people who were flight attendants and who would post stories about their travels
Oh,
worldwide.
cool.
And I was really fascinated by how they handle their lives, how you deal with that whole world. It was so different from what an average person working a job would be like.
For sure.
Yeah, and so when I saw that, it's like, oh, that's fascinating. So I started putting stuff out there too, and so often the stories that I would find had a healing element to it, and so I was
Nice.
very drawn to that, and just that whole thing about especially young women in particular who were so brave to take these jobs to travel worldwide. Often
Yeah.
they would travel by themselves.
Yeah.
They had like no worries whatsoever. I'm going to do this because I want to see the world, and I just
Yeah.
found it so fascinating. So, and I got drawn into it from there.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. So it's been a very interesting experience, and it fuels that creativity. Sometimes I get really good with the filmmaking that I do. I I kind of know where to point the camera at. I kind of know what, to get a lighting effect or a mood effect or something like that.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's a fun experience. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a fun like discovery and like you just, I mean that's what's so fun about being creative because it's like every project or every new thing you take on or do,
Mhm.
it's like you're learning as you're something new each time. Like, oh, this is cool.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
would you say that this channel led you to like currently writing your first book, or has that been in
Um,
the making for a while?
that's been kind of an organic thing that has happened.
Hmm.
I had discovered this educational program.
Hmm.
It's called Cinco Shakti Academy. And it's like a self-help thing, positive thinking, all this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And one of the courses that I ended up going into was a thing called Living in Freedom.
Nice.
And that's what this is here, the workbook for it.
I love it.
And it's based on Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. It's being able to see life in a much more calm way, um, having a sense of stability, not being judgmental, not being critical of others. It's kind of
Yeah.
a healing process that you go through. And because of that, I ended up becoming involved in a very large group of people through this coursework because you get invited to a private Facebook group and all this kind of stuff.
Nice.
And the student size is currently like at 7,200
Wow.
something. So it's a huge group.
Yeah.
And it was through that I was discovering all these miracle stories. And as I got more into that, that kind of fired up more on my vision of my YouTube channel. So
Nice.
yeah, it kind of unfolded from there. So the thing about writing a book, they just started coming out this year. So
Nice. How is that process? Is that like a very interesting process? Are you like in the middle of the night just like scribbling like, oh my God, I got it, and then you're like balling it up and tossing it?
it's tossing it away. Right. My my original plan was I was going to have it set and published in Amazon
Nice.
by the end of March. Well, here we are, May already, and I'm still working on it. So it takes a little while to do all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
I commend writers. I literally just I people kind of assume that I'm always like, oh, like I write because I direct movies, and they're like, oh,
mhm.
so you're a writer? I'm like, not really. I just kind of got into it. I kind of fell into it. I
Okay.
knew that I wanted to start doing it eventually. Like I had like ideas. So
Okay.
I would go to my writer friends and say, hey, could you help me with this? And they're like, yeah. But I would write. I used to write from like more of a camera point of view versus the writer's point of view.
Okay.
So I'm always
Yeah.
like POV, camera turns left,
Right.
character says
Right.
yada yada yada. But now I've been, now that I've been fortunate to be a part of a writer's class, I've learned so much, like just the format and how that
Mhm.
works, and certain programs that they use, and
Exactly.
I feel so much better. Like I used to feel like shy to like talk about, like, because I was like,
Really?
yeah, read my story, and I'm like, oh, it's
Oh.
so bad. They're like, no, this is really good. This is good. Just got to take this and put this in this format, like characters. This is actually the scene. This is the dialogue. This is, it's so cool, and it's a process. So I only can imagine what that writer process is. Writing a book, it's
Right,
pretty
right.
intense.
And I've always been interested in writing.
Yeah,
I'm a part of a program called DUPAS, which is the Detroit Unity
nice,
Authors and Poets Society.
nice.
Really, really nice group. We meet like once a month. And out of that, I met a film director, Marty Shea is his name, Shea,
Hmm.
and he's produced several films. He was a part of an international group, and there were two films in particular. I'm trying to remember the names of them. One was called The Train or Train Station,
Hmm.
and I think the other one was called The Package.
Nice.
And so what they would do is they would take this object of whatever it was. So like for the package, it would be a backpack or something, and you follow the story of what this going on with this backpack is changing from one culture to another.
I love
And when
that.
it goes to another culture, a different director takes hold of the story with a different series of actors and actresses.
That's fun.
Yeah, and it's really, really amazing because he was sharing his experience with us. And I think it was like 37 directors worldwide.
Sheesh.
It was a huge project, and it's part of this big collaborative kind of thing. It's super creative.
That's
And
awesome.
so they've done that twice with Train Station and
The package.
with the package. Yeah,
Nice.
because I had a little piece here. Oh, it's called The Owner. Was
The
his first
owner.
one.
Nice.
Yeah, and that was in 2012.
Nice.
And then Train Station came out in 2015. So
Nice.
uh, yeah, so it's interesting. It's
That's really
to,
cool. Like
to
an
see that kind of
anthology.
create. Right, exactly,
That's
exactly.
really, that's neat. That's
Yeah,
neat.
yeah. So it's like the theme is whatever this item is that's being followed, you're kind of following the story of it. And when each director gets a hold of it, they change the storyline.
Ah, I
So it
like
could be,
that.
the package could be drugs, it could be a package of gold, it could be mystery
I
documents or something like that. When it
love
goes
it.
to the next director, the whole storyline changes and it kind of morphs from there. So
That's really neat.
it is,
I'm
it
sure
is.
that that process of making that, it was a lot, because you know anthologies are, I love an anthology, but I just,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get, yeah, I'm working on one right now. It's quite interesting when you're working with other directors, and you're like, okay, this is a story, and we're kind of trying to intertwine the stories, and then but you can totally have a different story, but
Right.
like there's just maybe like, I don't know, maybe like there's one person in my story that somehow ends up in this story, somehow crosses paths, and then it just, I love those kind of, I don't know. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's kind of neat. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting process for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Very, very detail oriented. Um, I'm a huge detail oriented person, and that
Nice.
comes from kind of having a photographic eye and everything like that. All of this
Nice.
stuff sit behind me. This is vision boards that
Hmm.
I have,
I
for
love it.
spiritual enlightenment, and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
that is cool. That is cool. So would you say that, I mean, I remember you mentioned earlier, and then you said that growing up, it wasn't, you didn't have it wasn't the best environment. And
Right.
when I look at you now, I can never, I can't see that. You have such a bright, happy, and amazing personality. Just super energetic, and just,
Thank
I just,
you.
you just want to give you a hug. You're like,
Oh,
oh,
oh my God.
Um, so would you say that over the years, or how important is not only just self-discovery, but working on self, right? And
Exactly. Exactly.
how
Well,
important is
see,
that to you?
I was always fortunate enough to have um, somebody in the neighborhood to kind of watch over me.
That's good.
A lot of times it was a woman who did this, which was really interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
It would be somebody's cousin, it would be a woman down the street. I guess they took pity on me, whatever that
Oh.
was. But you know, because I kind of grew up in a household that was violent. You know, my father was
Hmm.
very aggressive. You know, it's kind of weird stuff. And of course, this is many many years ago.
Hmm.
But you find that when you start searching on a deeper level, which I kind of fell into by accident, I guess,
Hmm.
and you run into people who recognize that and they say, okay, I have something that might be able to help you, kind
Right.
of thing.
Yeah.
So I was always mentored by somebody, and it goes to show there is such a strong value of connection with people, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter what your religion is, what your racial background is. Um, you know, it's one of the reasons why I've had the success I've had in connecting with the people that I have in terms of social media, because I try to treat everyone as um, the fact that we're all connected on a spiritual level, and you know, boundaries don't exist or anything like that. And it just amazes me what you come across. So yeah, having people who are supportive helped a lot, and being part of a spiritual community, I think,
Yeah.
kind of added to that. Um, and I've always had sort of kind of a supernatural way of looking at things. Because back then I was into things like the Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, and Step Beyond. These are all shows from the
Yeah.
'60s, right? But they always came across this idea of being able to see things on a deeper level, and so
Yes.
that inspires a lot of imagination and everything. And then I've always written. I've been a writer of some kind ever since college, so
Wow.
that kind of stays with you. Yeah, so
That's
it's
awesome.
interesting.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. What's some of your favorite I mean, I guess even now, like what are some of your when you say for writing, or say if you're writing, have you ever written a script or anything like that, or a short?
Mostly like poetry and short stories.
Nice.
Um, Never really got into script writing. I attempted to look at that.
Yeah.
Um, I found it was really interesting because I read the script for what was the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Ah,
Shawshank
yes.
Redemption.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the stage dialogue behind that it was really really interesting
Yeah.
to see how they piece that together. You know, enter so and so, and he's crying, and this is his move. The sun is setting in the background. It's like, okay, we get it, you know, kind of thing. Um, but yeah, that all kind of been unfolding organically. It's probably the best way I can explain it.
Cool.
I've always had a fascination with older films, so I'm a huge Humphrey Bogart fan. Um,
Ah,
and
nice.
what I found so interesting about his movies, because there's like the Maltese Falcon, Key Largo, and Casablanca in particular. If you ever watch those films and watch the people in the background, they always try to, like in Maltese Falcon, for instance, there's a scene where he goes to the post office because he's going to mail this package to himself before the bad guys get it. So when he comes into the post office, if you look in the scene itself, there are always African American people in there. There's all these people from India. It's all these people. And this movie was made like in 1941, right?
Hmm.
So his point was is he always wanted to show life um, how it really looked, and not this the standard kind of look. You know, black
Yeah.
people were made. No, these black people you saw in the post office were professionals.
Hmm.
You know, they were in professional clothes, and they were never credited, but I'm sure those were probably very famous actors and actresses
Hmm.
at that time.
Yeah.
You know, and you know Hollywood being the way it was, it's like, well, we're not going to announce who this was or anything. So it's interesting to see that, right?
Yeah.
And
Do,
then, like in the movie Key Largo, he did a scene where, because this is about them being on this part in Florida before this huge hurricane happens,
mhm.
and you know the area is being taken over by these kind of like mobsters and stuff like that. well, there's a scene in it where he actually has a woman who actually lived on the island,
Ah,
and she was, I think, she was a Navajo Indian,
nice.
and she was like 110 years old, and they
Wow.
actually included her in the movie, and I thought that was really really fascinating.
That's
So he's
amazing.
always been that way. He always wanted to include people. Yeah,
That's
yeah. It's
that's
when you
important.
pay attention to the
Inclusion.
background. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's do
And to see that from movies from the 1940s and all
Yeah, yeah. It's like, wow, it actually you
that,
can make a
that was
movie
pretty
like
amazing.
that. Yeah. Because you hear so many times like,
Right,
oh, well,
exactly,
we
exactly.
don't want your kind or we don't want to give you the recognition or whatever. But
Right,
there were people, I mean, even Oscar Mescal, he was
right.
he was one of the first, I guess, recorded horror directors, African American horror directors, and like, oh gosh, like
Okay.
back in the he was the first African American horror director, and he had
Wow.
uh, uh, all types of nationalities in his movies, not just African
Mhm.
Americans, but he had um, white white people. He had all types of people in his movies, and I was like, wow, this is
Exactly.
actually pretty incredible
Yeah.
for him to even do that. I've never seen that.
Right.
So
Right.
it was cool.
Yeah.
I think it just
Yeah.
takes one person to want to go to be different and not to be a part of the machine, but to really create
Right.
what they want the world to look like versus
Exactly.
going
Exactly.
along with the I don't know, the norm, I guess.
Right. Right. We even in the movie Casablanca,
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
because these are all people from all different countries,
Yeah.
and they're in this bar basically trying to leave the country. And so you see people from Ethiopia, you see people from Asia, and you see all these different ethnicities in this film. And it's bizarre to see that when you think of when this picture was created. But it just goes to show the power of his star power at that time. And
Right.
his thing was like, well, show the people as they really are. Don't just bring in people that look like me, kind of thing. And
Right.
I always thought that was very fascinating. Just the way he approached film and everything's very different. So
Absolutely. Would you say
yeah.
with your poetry, what like when it comes to poetry and when you're what inspires you to write your poetry? So like what do you is it watching something? Is it an experience? Is it just life? Like what kind of what gets you there? I don't know.
A lot of it is imagination.
Okay.
It's kind of looking at the world and wanting to interpret it differently. Um, uh, for example, you could in your writing you can have a scene about snow falling on the ground. So I would write it in such a way where the snow falling on the ground looked like an ocean because of the way the wind blew it across the country.
Hmm.
And it's just a different way of looking at it. And I've always tried to approach things with a different eye. Um, and that came from some of the creative writing courses I was in.
Nice.
So it's yeah, it's different.
I love that.
But
I always like to ask
yeah,
people like what inspires them to write or what inspires them to because I mean sometimes you get there. It's for me, I have to sometimes it's just creatively it's not there. You're just like, what?
right,
And it's just a
right,
blank space. You're like, what do I talk about?
yeah,
You know?
exactly.
So I find it very cool that
And it,
yeah, it's an imagination
mm,
thing. That's cool.
oh yeah, and part of it too, I think at that time it was self-preservation
You're
because
right.
I needed to find a way to express something. But yeah, it was more for self-preservation because
Mhm.
sometimes it's that feeling of not being heard, and I'm sure a lot of people go through that, obviously.
Yeah.
And so it's a way of getting self-expression out there. And I was so blessed to come across a community of people who were interested in the same things. So we would create journal writing. And this would be like back in college. What was it like? Getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning to walk through
Yeah.
downtown Detroit and get to your college campus location, kind of thing. And the people that you run into, and then what the perception of that was like. What did you feel? What did you see?
Yeah.
What did you experience? And trying to incorporate all of that in your writing. So yeah, it's it's interesting.
That's
So
cool. Very
it, it,
cool.
it surprises me that it has taken me to where I am now. And I mean, I get credited for my writing quite a lot.
Nice.
And then especially like in the groups that I'm in, because we're always leaving positive messages with one another.
Great.
And it's usually done in the form of a short story, you know. And so when you're doing this and people come back and say, you need to write a book. I was like, okay. So that's kind of what fired that up too. So,
I love it.
yeah.
That's well, I'm excited
Yeah.
to see this book and read the book
Okay.
whenever it's done. Like, do you kind of have a do you know exactly what it's going to be about, or can you tell us a little bit about the
Sure,
book?
sure. Well, it's a spiritual journey that I've been on and
Okay.
how this transformation took place.
Okay.
Um, the connections I've had with people internationally. To me, that is such a mind-blowing experience because early on, I was a very standoffish person. I was friendly, but it was like if you got too close to me, it's like, no, 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 get away. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. And it's part of that withdrawing sort of personality.
Right, right.
Well, since being in these groups, that opened me up quite a lot, and I was surprised by the kind of responses I got. It's like, okay, well, there's something going on here for me to pay attention to,
Yeah.
and so that's how all of this is kind of unfolding.
Cool. Well,
Um,
I'm excited.
thank you, thank you.
Congratulations on this amazing journey with the book and just the continuing growth of just yourself. That's super exciting. Question, and
Yeah,
this is we always have to have something a little funny on the
no, it's okay.
show. Um, if there was a biopic based off your life, who would play you?
Interesting. Hmm. Who would? Well, see, I have a man crush. Okay, I have I have a man crush on George Clooney. I always thought he could play me,
Definitely,
but
definitely.
I'm sure if it was presented to him, he would be like, no. But you know, that's a whole another story. Um, but yeah, I'm a huge George Clooney fan. I'm a huge Brad Pitt fan. I think they're both
Yeah.
interesting characters. Uh,
Cool. I like them both.
from a comedic standpoint, I'm a huge fan of Dave Chappelle.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, very
Love
much so.
that guy.
I love the way he interprets life. It's a really, really interesting way he looks at things.
Yeah.
Another one is Craig Ferguson, who used to have the Late Late Show.
Yeah.
Um, his transformation when he was on that program was very, very fascinating because he introduced the gay robot skeleton, the horse running through I mean, and it was so ridiculous. But his whole thing was is that he wanted to create something that was very different. He didn't want to do
Right.
what everybody else was doing.
Right.
And I admire people who do that. It takes a lot of courage to step out like that. And he was lucky. He's even said this in interviews where um, his producer, who's the guy in charge of that 1 hour after David Letterman's program, he says you're like lightning in a bottle. He said, stay with us. You know, don't give it up. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter how ridiculous it gets, no matter how silly it gets. Um, because he even had the interview with um, what was his name? Oh God, I forget his name. Last name was Tutu. He was a gentleman from South Africa.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Bishop Tutu.
I want to say it's Bishop Tutu. I want to say
I,
you're right. I
yeah,
think I
I
think
think
you're
that
right.
I think that's who it was. And he even told him, he says, whatever you're doing, don't stop because it was different.
Yeah,
And it was a way of bringing people together in a very different way. Um,
definitely.
so I've always been attracted to those kind of personalities. If
Yeah.
you're thinking outside of the box a little bit, you got me. You know, I'm
You
with you
had me at
100%.
hello.
Exactly, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I think you and I talked previously, and I apologize for not remembering the young woman's name, but she's a musician, and she does a lot of her videos. It has a sci-fi um, kind of storyline to it.
Uh-huh.
Um, God, and she was in the movie about the women who were the mathematicians who helped.
Oh, Taraji P. Henson, maybe? Or is it, or
Oh,
maybe it's Octavia Spencer,
yeah,
possibly?
not to tell you, because she's a musician.
Oh,
She's
she's
a
a
singer.
musician. Oh, she's singer. She sings.
Yeah, yeah. She's
Mathematician. Oh, Janelle Monae.
Janelle Monae.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God. I tell you, I can look at her videos all day long. She is so fascinating to me.
She's really fascinating. I like her too.
She has a nice way of looking at things, and
Yeah.
I hope that one day soon somebody picks up that idea of
Yeah.
creating science fiction that's not based on the way a lot of those films are produced currently. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's um,
She's definitely
I
different. She's different.
yeah. She has a very unique perspective of things, and that I like.
Me
I
too.
can you go with that. You have me. We're good. Yeah.
I love
So
it. So,
yeah.
my last question to you would be, what advice would you give to someone that's either listening or just someone that wants to possibly go down the direction that you're heading? Like, what advice would you give to that person?
Absolutely. Do not be scared. Do it. Doesn't matter how ridiculous it sounds. It doesn't matter how cringe-worthy it's going to feel. That was advice that was given to me when I first started my YouTube channel. This young woman approached me. I mean, I'm like in my 60s, right? And this woman, she's like 21, 22, and she wrote me personally. And she says, "Don't worry about it." She said, "Your stuff is going to be cringe-worthy. You're gonna feel weird being in front of a camera. Do it. Just do it, because you'll be surprised what kind of an audience you'll pick up.
Yeah.
Because somebody wants to hear what it is that you have to say. And if you're honest about it, if you're kind to other people, um, having some care, love, and compassion when you interact with others is very important. Never talk down to anyone. Always find ways to lift people up in your conversations. And if you do that, you'll be fine. And whatever it is that you pick, yeah,
Yeah.
go for it. Because it's like life is too short to wait. And there's been times when I kind of look at my life and I'm like, if I had done this 10 years ago, you know, but it's okay,
It's
because it's a
okay.
learning experience, and
Yeah.
and I don't have any criticisms about that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty interesting.
That's awesome. Thank you. What great advice. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And also for the listeners or for everyone that's listening, where can people find you and follow you on your social media network?
Okay. So basically, you can find me on YouTube. Look under Leroy's T. I'm about the only one with that name out there, which is one of the reasons why I picked it. Um, I don't post as regularly as I should. I have some other things that I'm working on, so I haven't been in YouTube for a while. I do have a Facebook account, Leroy Stone. I'm an easy person to spot. There's like 3,000 people with that name, I'm sure, but um, yeah, I don't have the actual link address.
We'll
Sorry
have it
about
in the
that.
description box
Okay,
underneath on the website so people can click
beautiful.
and follow you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for coming on and talking to me. This was really fun. It was great to
thank
just to hear
you.
your story, and yeah, this was
Okay.
wonderful.
Yeah, I was tickled about all this. I didn't know how this was going to turn out. I wasn't sure what to talk about, this kind of thing. So
Well, hopefully it was painless.
it was. It was. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank
And
you. I,
eh,
I'm so very pleased with the work that you're doing.
thank you.
I'm really amazed by creative people who want to step out of the box, who want to try things differently. I love the fact that you have done things internationally. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got some talent. I mean, I have to tell you, I've seen the things that you've created, and it's like
Thank you.
this girl knows what she's doing. So and that's awesome. So rare people will have a dream and don't pursue it, which is one of the most heartbreaking things that I have experienced watching other people.
Yeah.
Even though I had a bad experience with my father, one of the things about my father that he missed out on was he was a wonderful artist.
Oh, wow.
He drew cartoons, he was amazing,
Wow.
but he never followed through on it because he had all this self doubt. He didn't think anybody would be interested, you know. And I think that was one of the things that caused him to be the person that he was, because he was
Uh,
a very angry person because of
yeah.
that. You know, you're not following your dreams, so
Yeah.
you cut your spirit off. And so, yeah, I'm 100% thrilled about what you're doing, and
Ah,
I wish you the best of luck. I know you're going to do great.
thank you. Thank you
Really
so much.
curious about this next project you got coming up.
I'm
What you
really
said
excited
there.
about. I wish I could talk about it, but I'm just so excited.
I,
So excited.
I know.
It's gonna be cool when it comes out. It's gonna be great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
gonna be great. So yeah, thank you guys for listening, and
Yeah.
always remember to live,
Love,
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 laugh.
laugh.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye bye.